Hi, I'm Leslie Lowe. Welcome to Leslie's Lowedown on Life.
Then you're in the hospital, and I'm sure it's all kinds of hurried busyness
It's
around
hurried.
you.
We went right, of course, to the ER, and they had the neurosurgeon came in, and he asked me what he did for a living. And I told him, and he said he can, I don't know, that he gives you that little sliver. It was a little much for Kendall, but he was like, he can go back to work. And I was like, later on, it's like, you can go back to work. That's what the neurosurgeon said. And
Right.
it gave us a goal.
And he did, and all of anything from here on until St. Luke's, basically 23 days at Sacred Heart. I do have glimpses of memories, but I have to rely on Trish. Yeah, the surgeon came in to her immediately and said, "What does he do for a living?" And she said, "He works in radio." Good, he will be able to return to work. And that gave,
But it was pretty chaotic.
that gave her a lot of energy, but just the chaos of things going on, which I wasn't even aware of.
Right, because
He was giving me passwords like, okay, now you need to tell so-and-so this is the password to this. And he was just reeling. So he was he was very conscious and talking and before you went into surgery.
But I wasn't quite aware of what I was repeating. For some reason, I kept giving her the password to my work email. And it was like they're going to need to, and then I thought, well, I'm sure the IT guy could probably get into my email if anybody needed
But it was
him.
probably your brain
just
trying to get some order.
And
right?
it was like
And
all the
familiarity.
things.
What's going to happen tomorrow?
And to be honest, there was part of my process was I would many times eat dinner and I would jump back on the laptop, get things, remotely. And I had not gotten the music set for Tuesday on the radio station yet. And I was at a hospital at 10 o'clock at night. So my mantra, I guess I was, Trish had to call everybody and tell them what happened. And then it was chaos.
You were still trying to do what you needed to do.
I think
your brain was trying to normalize everything.
My brain was just spitting out just random things.
Familiarities.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Just all the stuff.
When he was at Sacred Heart, he had a spinal stroke, which we have never talked about.
What is that?
We
talk about that if you don't mind.
It affected his arms, so he had full function of his arms. But it's something to do with your nerve damage. So he lost half of the feeling in his arms, and the nerve pain was terrible. It was the neurologist and the neurosurgeon were going back and forth as to what to do, and he was in terrible pain. And they were the neurosurgeon wanted him to get to St. Luke's, and the neurologist was we think he had a spinal stroke. He needs to stay in the hospital. Well, the surgeon won, and he went to St. Luke's, but you only get so many days of rehabilitation, and he couldn't. They had to put a sign on his door. He couldn't even stand to hear the click on the door that's shutting. So
those are vague memories.
And is that sensitivities because of the stroke?
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
And the bottom line is, I wasn't probably strong enough to be discharged yet. But
so they sent him back to Sacred Heart.
To Sacred Heart.
For about, I think, 2 more weeks before he went back to St. Luke's.
Quite a bump in the road. I don't remember it being that long.
I know. We were just talking about that. He didn't.
It's hard, I'm
remember
sure.
that.
And just for the stroke, I hope I get all the numbers right. My original chest level was my injury at the T4. thoracic 4, and then up higher, they believe at some point I had a stroke that affected T5 and T6, so it went up 2 more notches.
Wow.
And that caused, I guess, it almost feels like I'm wearing sleeves or gloves, or
Does
it's
it
a
still
little
feel
numb.
like that?
It's numbness. It doesn't hurt unless I can get some nerve pain.
Hmm.
But that just happened while I was laying in bed at Sacred Heart. I mean, I do remember 2 professionals. They were arguing about what happened to
happened?
Ken, and I'm just here going, I don't know.
I'm right here.
Just tell me where
Yeah.
I should go. I don't know. But that was interesting. Trish was probably more involved in that.
It's just probably the trauma on your body.
It could have been, yeah.
Wow.
So,
You learn I learned pretty fast how to be his advocate when you have a loved one in the hospital, making sure, sticking up for what you.
I was going to ask you about that because you're already being married for a long time and 3 kids together. You're already naturally each other's advocates, but that takes it up 20 notches, and you're having to step in and speak for him and make sure that he's getting what he needs.
Yeah, that doesn't come to me naturally, but I did learn to do that, to, stick up for him and speak my mind. And
And
when
if-
I didn't think care was what should be, or, I mean, you're there with your loved one. So I did learn how to do that at Sacred Heart and St. Luke's.
quite strongly, and
Yeah.
and made lifelong friends
St. Luke's is our family.
with some of the
Yeah.
members there, and I do remember most of the time at St. Luke's, but prior to that, it's just glimpses of guests, and I remember a therapy dog that came at Sacred Heart, and that was the happiest I had been up to that point. Putting my hand on that warm dog, and it was just laying there.
Comforting.
I'll never forget.
Well, and the love of the
I will just
community
never
Yeah.
forget that.
too.
Oh,
It's amazing.
not to mention, yeah, everything that was happening in the community and on the radio with Dave and Molly spearheading.
I do want to ask you about that because when this happened, it was devastating for you as a family. It was devastating for the community. I'll never forget that, oh my gosh, what happened? How can we help? And then just to see this community rally around you and your family, and it shows how much you're loved and how embedded you've been in this community for years.
Well, and people, you usually hear the negative stories, but
Mhm.
we really learned that there is an overwhelming amount of people that are so generous. I mean,
Oh.
he still goes out and people ask him how he's doing, or he'll somebody's pushed you in the van once, or he loved to go to the grocery store before, and so he still will do that for small things, and somebody'll reach something on a top shelf for him. I mean, people are really helpful.
People are just wonderful, and it's really. I hope I don't crumble here, but when someone comes up and says, like, I prayed for you, or I bought a coffee, and I don't even drink coffee. I mean, it's just so special. It really is. I'm sorry, but
No, it speaks volumes for, again, you are kind of Spokane's family. And when this happened, everybody wanted to jump in and to do everything. And I think in a world where, you said it a second ago, there's so much negative and we hear so much bad.
Right.
to see the good and to see the love that really is there and it is the foundation is a great reminder. How's that changed you guys?
Oh boy.
Tremendously.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I've mentioned through our journey and the people we've met because of my accident, you're kind of in a new club that nobody wants to be in, a disability club or whatever, but the unbelievable people that have been there before you,
Mm-hmm.
among others, just, and just the friendship and just the support.
My mantra for that was always, okay, it's 1 second, 1 minute, 1 hour, 1 day, and 1 year. And I remember somebody saying, you won't believe how different things will be after a year. And I just thought that's going to be impossible.
We couldn't
But it's
imagine a year.
true. And so I
It's
tried
true.
to just really live by I would just say that in my head. It's like, okay, whatever was happening for the day, I would just really take things in very small increments because it was impossible to
Yeah.
take
Yeah.
it all.
Yeah.
And so that was huge.
That's a great mantra, actually. 1 second, 1 minute, 1 hour,
Just
1 day.
very small.
Yes.
It's yeah, how things just the priorities just got down to just minute by minute. I remember in St. Luke's by the time I got there and was cognizant and I was in truly rehab form. I was still recovering, but I just looked at my board every morning and that was my day. It was, breakfast, then I go to the gym, then I have a little break, then it's lunch, then I go to the gym, then I got this, and this, and it's like I knew I could do that. I've been on teams. A coach tells you to do something, I just did it. So I knew I could do that. I knew I could get through the program on time, but
You did say,
nobody knows.
yeah.
I didn't know how life was going to be after I get out of here. I had no clue.
It's got to be overwhelming.
You're hoping it all works out, but
I
all I know
remember
for now is I can go to the gym and I can do what they say. I will do that.
when I came in one day at St. Luke's and he was learning how to dress himself. I mean, it's just the basic things. And I was like, it's like, well, you can go back to work, your life isn't over. And he's like, but I trying to learn how to get my pants on here,
It's got to be scary.
Yeah.
It is so, those first few, I mean, it's kind of automatic now, but those first few months, I should say, I do remember Trish coming in and I was so proud that I got my pants and socks on, because I'm laying and sitting and I was exhausted, but I was just so thrilled. Hey, I got my pants on. Hey, the doctor said you can go back to work too. All right, I'm not quite sure yet.
You're like, but you've got your pants on.
But hey,
Let's get you to work here.
Gosh, you can sit up by yourself now. Yeah.
It is all those things that we take for granted, right? It's just our everyday routines and then relearning.
It is 100%. Even though I was a full-grown man with a full-grown mind, your body you're a toddler. It was almost ironically funny because just a few years prior, we're assisting my elderly father and they become just like your little toddlers and you help them. And it's like, man, I'm learning to walk. I can't hardly even pick anything up. I'm dropping the phone on my face.
Okay.
it was a mess. But it's amazing how, and they did say, just wait. You won't believe a year from now. And I'm saying, I can't even think a day from now.
Yeah.
It was frustrating.
How did you guys get
but
through that? Was it humor? Because I know that you guys are, I mean, you're funny and
I remember
you're strong.
the recreational therapist that first time you went out. And that's like where you have to learn how to transfer into a car. I wasn't even with him. It was like, okay, we're going to meet you at a restaurant.
It was my first field
I can't
trip.
remember if they took you
Oh.
downtown, but I think just with his job and speaking, he had to kind of even talk slower, make sure he's formulating his words. It didn't bother him to be out in front of people, which is difficult for people after they're paralyzed.
Right.
Being in a wheelchair and just feeling awkward, you're different. And I think that helped you quite. I remember the therapist saying that you weren't bothered by being out in a wheelchair. So
That's something I never thought of until Trish told me. Because most people, you're being looked at because you're in a wheelchair, and not that I'm like you on TV, but out and about, people might recognize
Oh,
me. And
yes, they
so
do.
I was always used to people looking at me and just
Saying hi.
so if they looked at me in a wheelchair, I'm just, that's great. That didn't bother me. I'm more used to that. And a lot of people out walking with canes or walkers, you don't want to be noticed.
But that's kind of a
because of
blessing that you were able to take that piece of it and
Yeah.
be okay with it.
And I love nothing more than if someone comes up and asks me a question specifically about my chair or my disability. I'm just really comfortable with that, probably because I was in the public eye and I'm kind of used to that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I do love it when little kids, parents just are mortified when their little kids come up to me because the parents don't know what they're going to ask.
It's true.
I love it.
Right?
I absolutely love it. Why are you writing in that? Well, I'll tell you what. I was in an accident, and now here's what I love kids. They're just, no question
Yes.
is off the board for them.
They're so sweet and they're so innocent. And they really,
Innocent.
actually, they look at you like a superhero. You're like a
Kind of.
wheels,
superhero.
look at
Yes.
those wheels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's almost more like, where's your cape?
Yeah.
I know. I've had many funny little incidents. I do tend to drop things off my lap quite a bit. I was at a little grocery store, and there was a gal with a little toddler in her cart, and I thought the toddler said, "Uh-oh." And I thought, oh, did I drop something? And so I looked down and I told the mom, I said, oh, I thought she said, uh-oh. And she said, no, anytime she sees wheels, it's go, go. And I go, oh, go. Okay.
That's
I
awesome.
Wanted you to go.
I just
I
thought
love
it was
that.
uh-oh.
Not uh-oh, go.
So, yeah. Oh, kids love wheels.
Yes.
I can see their eyes go right to it.
It's like you've got your own Hot Wheels.
Yeah.
So how did this change how you prioritize life as a couple and as a family?
I do remember laying in St. Luke's, and there were some humorous times. There were a lot of dark times, and I remember telling Trish, I said, I don't know if I can just go on the radio and just laugh about trivial stuff. I couldn't imagine doing that. Like whatever Madonna's doing now. I mean, I just thought, I just don't know if I will get back to that. I did, but there was a time when I just thought, I just can't imagine just laughing about, some sitcom on TV or something. It just didn't, it's felt so far away.
And you had an avenue too to talk about just what it's like living in a wheelchair, which there's not very many opportunities where people that are living in a wheelchair get to hear somebody who's doing that.
Right.
Right.
And so, I mean, really, that's what it came down to, was being able to share that. And you do have a good sense of humor.
I'll tell you, there's a lot of disability is a clown show. I mean, there's a lot of, all of our lives are hilarious if you peel it back. But I mean, you just got to deal with the humor of it. And, you know, a lot of that is meeting people that have been there before me. I can't believe we're coming up on 10 years. I was just talking to a friend of mine who is about my age, and I said, I'm almost 10 years in. And he said, well, I'm almost 40 years in. All of my friends, my wheelchair friends, I would say, I still feel like a newbie. I still learn and find a new idea, or why have I been doing it this way for 10 years? I can do, you know, just little shortcuts of about how to live life. It's amazing.
Isn't it interesting how you introduce a whole new community that you didn't even think about probably a lot before, but you say your wheelchair friends.
I know.
But you know, that's so real and that's so honest. But you don't normally like think about that. But you know, you say you're 10 years in, you've got a friend who's 40 years in, but you probably learn so much from each other and gather so much strength, and just having that camaraderie and that relationship with somebody who knows and understands.
Yeah.
It is amazing. Yeah, I look at the class I was with at St. Luke's, which is an odd way to look at it. I was 54.
Yeah.
It was all 20-somethings. It was all motorcycle, car accident, diving, maybe. And
they had a whole different set of, maybe they weren't married or they had just gotten married and they don't have any children yet. And what were they they couldn't go back to what their job was before.
Right.
So we tried to find the positives of things, that, wow, he was really lucky. He got to do all these activities. And spinal cord injuries come so far. I mean, people water ski and snow ski and play basketball
Rec sports
and have children, and
Which is so great.
yeah.
it's amazing.
Yes.
I did, and I even shared with a couple of the guys. There was one young lady there too, and you know, you'd see them in the gym. There wasn't a lot of camaraderie, but you were just such on the same level. You could look at each other and communicate almost. But I just felt so thankful that I was married, am married, kids, job, all the things that I got to do before this unfortunate thing happened. I just couldn't imagine being 21 and maybe you're in college and what am I going to do now? But I learned from them. I hope they learned from me.